right, guys, here we go. 3 lakes, 3 places to start on each lake in the month of May. We try to break them down, just like if I'm going to go, fish a tournament, on one of these bodies of water, where do I start? It's just you always want to find a place to start. You look at a big 20, 40, 50,000 acre lake, where do you start? We try to do that in this video series that we do each month. It's 3 different lakes. These 3 lakes we're doing this month, you guys sent in to me. I have been on 2 of them, never seen the other one, so we'll take a shot in the dark and see how I do. You guys can leave a comment and tell me if I did any good, but we're breaking down 3 lakes, where to start in the month of May. All right, so our 3 lakes, what are they? We had a comment, or somebody asked us to break down Grapevine Lake in Texas. It's a really metropolitan lake, gets fished a lot, an older lakes, so that's one thing about this series. Maybe these aren't your 3 lakes where you fish, but I feel like if you watch this series and some of these lakes are going to relate to wherever you're at. So Grapevine, just a little bit about it. It's going to be a dingier water lake. At best it might have 2-foot visibility in the summer. It's just got largemouth, it's got some spotted bass. They've actually put a few little smallmouth in there, I think, through the years. They catch some big ones in there every now and then, but heavily pressured, not very big, right in the DFW Metroplex. The other lake is Bellows Lake, B-E-L-E-W-S, in North Carolina. Never been there. Cool looking lakes, got tons of shoreline. I really like that lake and how it looks. It's got largemouth and spotted bass in it, the little bit of research I did online. And then our final lake is it's just an ugly lake. I don't know how else to describe it. And don't take offense to that, because all you people from the Jackson, Mississippi area, like Ross Barnett's it's just not a very pretty lake. It's just kind of always dirty, I feel like. There is that one Pelahatchie Bay that kind of gets some clean water in it. But it's got bass in it. But it's kind of a tough fishery, I feel like, at times, just because it is so off-colored. I feel like it's a fairly tough fishery. So we're going to break it down for the month of May. 3 places where I would start. So all right, let's get off into it. Grapevine Lake, let's just look at it here on my C map. When I zoom over there to it, right there in the DFW Metroplex, right by Lake Louisville, kind of faces northwest to southeast. When you look at this lake, it's just doesn't have a lot to it. I don't mean that bad. There's some really big marinas down here on this lower end. A big marina over here. This upper end gets really shallow, silted in, flat, dirtier water. But for me, in the month of May, where do we start? So I'm looking over here on my computer. We do the baits, top 3 baits each month. The shad spawn is what I think of big time in the month of May. The other thing I think of is the bluegill spawn, and those are 2 opportunities that bass have to just gorge themselves. If they didn't eat any during that time frame of spawning, it's just an opportunity, easy meals for them to go fish. And so I really geared up where I want to start on these lakes around that, and with the shad spawn, that's just a fun way to fish. I've done quite a few videos on it on this channel. And when you look at this, this is going to be a little later in the shad spawn, especially towards the end of May. The 1st of May is just starting down there. But, so if I was looking early in May or early in the shad spawn, a couple things that really stand out to me. You don't have a lot of docks on this lake, but I have a really big marina right here. And you got to think about, just fish spawning in the back of this pocket. They could come right out here underneath this whole marina, and just I'd be throwing a spinnerbait, a vibrating jig down those slips, catching shad spawn fish. But that's not where I'd start. And let me tell you why. Because it's big. It's going to take a lot of time. So if you come right down here, check this pocket out. I've got another north-facing pocket. I would think a good spawning pocket. It's got some. I feel like in these Texas lakes that are older, they spawn on this harder rock. Like that right there. And we're talking about a whole nother video. But we've got some harder banks. Over here on the left, this is harder. Some areas, You know, that little section right there is hard. Some areas where they would have a good successful spawn. And this photo here, the lake's low, just so I could show you a few of these. But this marina here is where I would start because it is a lot smaller. Man, I could fish this dock. I could just fish it quickly. Every fish in there, if there's a shad spawn going on, those shad are gonna be spawning on that dock. I could make it happen super, super quick. And I would get an idea if it's happening, you know, where they're at in it. You know, another couple marinas that I would have to look at, and in general, these areas down here just hold lots of fish, you know, just from my experience. You know, you could fish this back dock. I would start right here on this very back dock. It's just kind of neat that it's got a bridge. It's got, you know, lots of characteristics to it. It is a southern facing, a north wind would blow into pocket. So it's going to be a little later in the spawn. And then I've got a tire reef out here. So when I'm in that shad spawn mode, that's the two docks I look at. I fish this one, and then if I get bites all the way down, and then I keep going. But if I don't get bites here, I idle right out here and I'll fish this one and I'll fish that tire reef, and then boom, I'm moving on. Same thing over here at this marina. I'm gonna fish this back dock right here. If I get bites, yeah, then you keep going. If I don't get bites, I idle around, I fish this front one, and then boom, I'm gone. So that's just how I approach it. Now the other thing, another place to start on this lake, the other thing that you've got to think about when bass go to spawn is rock. You know, they don't all just spawn on docks. They don't all spawn on tire reefs. And, you know, when you look around this lake a little bit, you know, they've got some really good rock. And this pocket here in general has got some really neat flat rock points. You know, when you put some water on these things, they're just all covered up. There, it's flooded. But right, I'm trying to find an in-between photo. Yeah, right there. You know, we've got water on top of some really good rocks that are out here in the water. And those are the kinds of areas that I think those fish spawn really, really well on. The shad spawn really, really well on. Find that low water photo again. I think that's it right there. So there's a low water photo right there. And you can just see I like these flat points. You know, I like this point right here in particular. You know, you get water over the top of that. You know, I've got some hard rock surfaces back here that those fish can spawn on. And that's one thing you're going to have to figure out. Like, look at this point right here. And I would start in there if I saw birds. Like, if I see birds lining the bank, that's what I want to look for. If I got a little south wind blowing in it, that's why I picked it. You know, it's the time of the year that south-southwest wind's blowing a bunch. It's going to crash into this whole side of the lake. Another thing to think about is a little bit more bluffy type banks. So if you come down this lake a little bit, there's some bluffy banks that are more vertical that those shad will spawn on. You know, this area right in here, you can just see it's a lot steeper type stuff, you know, with a flat point mixed in right there. I would want to find something bluffy. Let me see if I can find something else bluffy. Right here's a prime example. On the outside of this pocket here, I've got some good bluff type banks, just steeper type banks, you know, going down through there. You know, they're going to be on something along those lines, but those are some areas that I would look for. Just straight up main lake bluffs, bluff ends, you know, those flatter points. It all goes down to if you've got shad following your spinnerbait in, if you got shad following your vibrating jig in, you know, and I fish super fast that time of year. I running down the lake, I'm looking for birds, you know, looking for anything standing on the bank, and then keep in mind, the dirtier the water, the cloudier it is, the more it'll last throughout the day. So, you know, a lot of times I will just move right on up the lake, you know, as the day progresses, and you can keep that shad spawn going, you know, if you get on up the lake a little further, because the water will be stained. But those are some areas that I would start on this lake. It's not a big lake. There's not a lot to choose from. You know, in my opinion, those are some of the most productive areas on the lake. You can never go wrong with fishing the dam, any dam in the state of Texas, you know, just the riprap, all those rocks. Great place for those shad to spawn on that dam. That's a given, guys. I don't want to overlook the dam, but you always want to fish the dams when you're in and around, you know, especially those DFW lakes in Texas. All right, moving on to the next lake. Let's just head east. Not west, but let's head east. We'll just go right over here to Ross Barnett, and we will pick out some areas to start on that lake. This lake runs kind of southwest and northeast. You can see it's just a dirty lake. You know, this is Pelahatchie Bay right down here in the bottom. It's a pretty flat lake. It's got lots of lily pads all up this right-hand east shore. There's some really good spawning bays. A lot happens, you know, down this stretch right here. The problem I have with it, it's pretty random. Like for me to tell you, hey, you go start right here, I can't point anything out to you on this map. There isn't anything on my C map over here that says, hey, this is a place to start. And for me, when it's all about trying to get that first bite. I would venture up this river, and here's a couple reasons why. When you look at this up here, let me try to see if I can find a better photo that's a little bit brighter. Yeah, this is decent. When you venture up this river and you look at all these backwaters, that tells me that there's all kinds of habitat for bass to spawn. Let's say from right here, you know, to that bridge, there's just all kinds of little nooks and crannies that are out of the current that's going to be good water for fish to spawn. I'm not telling you they're spawning in May, but now that I know where they spawn, where they're going, it makes it easier for me to intersect them. So when I would go up this river and I would tell you places to start, okay, I got a big spawning bay back here, I would start picking apart all these entrances and exits out of these spawning pockets. This point right here, if there's some laydowns on it, this point right here, you know, these points right here, you know, possibly right here if I've got good current flowing through this lily pad field. Just all these high percentage little points and cuts. You know, one, you're going to have current. Two, you're going to have a shad spawn going on those laydowns, on those clay banks up there. It just, to me, I could break it down really, really quick in the month of May up there. You know, flipping laydowns, throwing a spinnerbait, throwing a vibrating jig. It could happen really quick. You know, I had a tournament on West Point a long time ago in May, and it was the same scenario. You know, that lake's kind of, in my opinion, fits a little bit like this one, and I caught them really good up in that river, just fishing all those corners and turns and steeper banks, ins and outs, right in the mouths of all those spawning pockets. And in my mind, every day I just fished the same bodies of water, the same stuff, and it was just new fish moving out from spawning, going out there trying to eat. You know, you're going to have bluegill beds, you know, also in some of these areas. You know, if you get back in, out, off that current, that would be something else you would look at. If you're not getting bit on those points, maybe they're not there yet, venture right back in here to these, you know, areas you might start seeing some bluegill beds. It's going to be a great place to throw a frog, to swim a jig, to throw a popper, spinnerbait, those kinds of things. But I would start on that kind of stuff. And, you know, I picked one right off the bat. I feel like this is a really good spawning pocket right here. The mouth of it right here would be good. The mouth of it right here. I've got another one right there. It's just really quick areas. I can cover a lot of high percentage points really quick in a short amount of time. You know, right here I've got a really good cut through. I'm going to have current going through there. You've got a spawning, you know, spawning pockets and bays right here. Those fish are going to pull right out here. Somewhere in that little quarter-mile stretch, there is going to be some fish out there eating on shad, out there just waiting, letting that current bring stuff to them. To me, that's just a super high percentage area that is in a contained area that I can make happen really quick to figure out how to get a bite. So that's how I would attack Ross Barnett in the month of May, up that river, fishing all those cuts and corners. Okay, our final lake. Never been here. Bellows. I think I'm saying it right. It's Bellews. You talk about an interesting lake. I spent just a little bit of time. I didn't get to study this long today. Lots of shoreline. I mean, lots of shoreline. When you look at this thing, it just goes and goes and goes. And you got a power plant on it, which is another kind of curveball on this lake. It doesn't fluctuate any. I think the elevation of it's 777 maybe, so it's a fairly high in the realm of elevations of lakes. You know, it's 100 foot, 200 foot higher than a lot of lakes. It's going to be a little later in the year, I feel like, as far as the spawns and all that stuff. I would think in April is probably the main spawn on this lake. They're just getting done in May, so keep that in mind when you're getting to this lake. It's kind of interesting. It's got a lot of boat docks, you know, in this one creek down here by the dam, and then it's got a few boat docks up here in a couple other areas, and then other than that, there's really not many boat docks. So if I had to break this down on places to start, there's a couple obvious things on here to me that just scream super easy, and we talk about it all the time, but look at all these different bridges you have. You know, you've got a bridge, can you get through that one? Hold on. Yeah, you got to get through that one because there's a boat ramp there. You got a really narrow opening right there. It's going to have a lot of current going in and out anytime the wind's blowing, anytime you got rain. See if these Google Earth photos. Oh, yeah, it connects. Connects big time. Okay. Man, that water just doesn't change. It's clean on this side and dirty on this side, but just these small openings. You've got one right there at the Pine Bluff Boat Launch. Probably lots of tournaments go out of that. You've got another one over here. You've got one right here. And you've got I don't know if that's one. Oh, yeah, that's one too. You got three of them right there you could hit really quick. So that's a given. Just any time of the year, 365 days a year, those bridge openings are just super simple places to go get a first bite. I also like the fact that, you know, you could fish the riprap of these bridges for that shad spawn. It might be, you know, something that you could do really, really quickly and figure out how to get a bite. Okay, moving on. Looking at my sea map, I feel like, you know, I said that this lake, the spawn, in my opinion, I could be way off, guys, but this is my thoughts on it. I feel like the majority of your spawn's happening in April, but I feel like there could be some fish that are, you know, me not knowing anything about this lake, it is a power plant lake. You know, the water is discharged, you know, right here. If I was to run away from that and maybe find some colder water, the lower end of this lake is really deep. Looks like 140 feet. Thus, this water body down here is going to be colder. I would think I could find some spawning fish down here in these last few pockets by the dam. You know, and I would run in a couple of these right there. I would run in, you know, this one there, these right here. I think I could go down there and I could, you know, throw me a shaky head. I could throw a drop shot around, you know, and I could find some spawning fish, and especially on something main lake like this. You see how this is a bar that comes out right there? You know, those spotted bass, those largemouth are going to spawn on that spot right there. You know, on this one right here, it's kind of hidden. It's kind of a little secondary point. The water's clear. You know, they could spawn on that point right there. I would throw a shaky head on it. This one right here, another great one. That kind of stuff to me in May is you've got fish on there that are still spawning. You've got a bluegill spawn that could be happening out there on those spots. Those are hard spots. They could be out there eating those. And then it's just it's a point, it's an underwater area where they want to summer. So you have lots of reasons that those fish could be on some of that offshore structure. So there's three areas, you know, that you could look at down the lake. You know, shaky head, swing head jig, you know, see if there's any of that bluegill spawn going on, if they're still spawning. You know, and then if I was to pick, you know, one other thing to really think about on this lake, I had a couple things in mind. I liked this offshore hump right here for a couple reasons. It's right before it really necks down. You can see we got a big body of water, then it necks down. It's just right in that transition area. Whenever I go to any body of water, you kind of look for those transition areas where the river meets the lake. You know, that section of the lake a lot of times is the most fertile. You got clear water meeting dirty water. It's just an area of the lake I always look at. And this big offshore hump is right there in that area. The only drawback I have to it is it is right across from the power plant. So maybe that water may be really warm. Fish may be already in a summertime pattern. I don't know. I don't live there on that. But I like how that thing looks. With that said, final place to start. I would probably have to definitely go in this last creek down here by the dam, just because it has so many boat docks. You know, I think about the bluegill spawn and all that stuff. Man, I could pull in here and I could fish a lot of boat docks in a hurry, just really, really quick. I just like that. And to pick something in particular, I saw a couple on here that kind of stood out to me a little bit. This pocket right here. So I've got a big spawning pocket. I like this because I could, you know, just fish all the way out that thing, you know, shad spawn, bluegill spawn in between them. These here on this point, to me, every bass that spawned back here, you know, I would start on those three right there, throwing my spinnerbait vibrating jig underneath those, just to see if I had a shad spawn going on, and then pull back right around here. You know, this little secondary splitter point to me is a perfect spot for a bluegill spawn. You know, throw my popper or my wacky worm up there. It has a lot of cover in it. Thus, I feel like having lots of bait fish, lots of bluegill that I could fish really, really good, really efficiently. You know, right here in this cove right here, to me, this looks, I've got, I thought I had riprap there. It looked like it. But you got spots here like those bluegill will spawn in these back pockets that are kind of flat, got a little secondary point in them. You know, I would just cruise the banks looking for that kind of stuff. I'm going through some of these aerial photos. You'll notice a few of them, you can see just a little extended point extending out. And to me, that's where those bluegill will spawn. And that's the stuff that I look for in May. So there's some areas on Bellows Lake and my thinking on it and what I would do. Man, I hope this helps you become a better fisherman. Apply these areas, these things that I look for when I travel the country for places to start. But 3 interesting lakes, kind of 3 difficult lakes, to be honest with you. Not the easiest of lakes to pick, you know. They don't have big tournament weights. At least the first 2. I don't know about Bellows. At least the first 2, they don't have big winning weights. You know, they're just kind of tough fisheries, not a big population in them. But those are some areas that I hope help narrow it down for when you go to start there. With that said, let's get to last month's winner. Back in our last time we did this, we will pick a winner right here. And we've got Johnny Crisp 7584. He said, thanks so much for including Lake Hopticon. I can't say it right. But anyway, don't let the keyboard captains ruffle your pronunciation. You hit it right on the head for the breakdown. Now all my buddies will bust me for revealing their go-to spots. So John, hey man, for leaving that comment, buddy, go to my website, send me your address. No, actually, you don't have to send me an address. I'm going to send you a certificate. So it's a digital certificate. So you are the only winner. Let's keep all the spam off here. I will never send you guys an email, a text, any of that stuff. John, Crisp, you send me an email and I will respond. And you are the winner of an Optima battery of your choice in the AGM line. You know, one of the cranking batteries, one of the trolling motor batteries, the blue tops. You get to choose which one you want. So appreciate you playing along. Appreciate you leaving the comment. Helps the channel a bunch. Hope you guys catch them up, and good luck to you.